People in the United States want to know more about who Chris Hani was and what his contribution to the struggle was. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit how you first met Chris Hani and what his role in the struggle was.
Um, I met Chris Hani when I went into exile. Um, that was on the 23rd of July 1977. And I'd hurt my feet walking through frost. And he came to see me that night. And I'd heard about Chris Hani earlier in connection with the Zimbabwean campaign. And there was he in front of me. And the first impression of him was one of concern for me, that I had walked through the river and we sat and we talked. I worked in the underground, so he wanted to know who was picked up in my cell and who had escaped. Well, I didn't know who had escaped. I knew who had been picked up. But immediately it was business, what's happening.
What was his role in the struggle in those early days?
Well, he was MK, but MK didn't operate very overtly in Lesotho. It couldn't. Subsequent to my meeting him, I found that he had been in prison for I think 6 months, but I could be wrong about how long. And one of the things he told me that had happened to him was that he was held naked in Lesotho. And you just have to live in Lesotho to know how terrible that is, It's extremely cold. And how somebody could have stayed nude, in a prison cell. And I said, how did you manage? He says, just jogging and just going to bed and sort of sleeping on your stomach, And of course he's the sort of human being that makes frivolity of everything that's so serious. I mean, he could have died of cold. And then on a personal level, Chris became very important to me because my daughter, who was also exiled, took exile very badly. And, we had no business altering her life and altering her friends. You told it?
That was right after the Soweto uprising, was it not?
Yeah. Soweto uprising was the year before.
Mm-hmm. What was the underground like and Chris's role in it?
Well, I didn't work with Chris in the underground, so I don't know. But being in Lesotho, I saw how hard he worked, and people were toing and froing from within the country. And I mean, I worked as a lawyer in which meant Mondays to Fridays, and then the weekends was taken up with seeing comrades from home, and they came from all over, from the Eastern Cape, which is easy, from Natal, from the Orange Free State, from Transvaal. And whenever he couldn't manage, he'd ask me to help him. But he was busy. He was busy.
One of the things that comes up a lot, and it came up in the interview with Benji, she mentioned that he played a critical role in linking up the issues of race, class, and gender, and bringing the struggles together.
That's what it was all about. And I don't think he personally did that, himself. Everybody was about that. But as a leader, you saw it. He set the example. White comrades coming across, he would meet them. And you'd see that, I drove past and I'd see him in a hotel or something interviewing all kinds of people. But that was what we did,
The authorities in South Africa, did they know who he was at that point?
Oh yes, oh yes. There was always plans to kill Chris. On the one occasion, oh, there were 3 times they attempted to do it. But I think I should tell you about another aspect about this. Was a British think tank fellow. Because I was a lawyer working for government in Lesotho, the government of Lesotho used to push a whole lot of fellows to see me, you know. And one of them was this British from the Foreign Office, and he belonged to the think tank. And he said he had just come, I think it was about 80, 81. He had just come from South Africa. He had seen government, he had seen the military, he had seen trade union, you know. And he says the changes are definitely on the, what you call, on the cards now. I think you can pack up and go home. So I said, we're not about cosmetic changes. We're about sharing power. And so he said, oh. And then he says, what about this fellow Chris Hani? Somewhere in my papers is a letter that I wrote to Oliver Tambo saying, this is the interview I had. But one of the things I remember was, why are the Boers so afraid of Chris Hani? I said, did they tell you that? And yes, throughout my conversations with the military police, Chris Hani was at the butt of their conversation. So I said, well, he's about democracy. That is a very difficult subject for the Boers because they don't know anything about it. And he said, oh, he says, but you see, he was baiting me and I was baiting him. And I said, so that would be a problem. But he said, no, he's a soldier. I said, one soldier? The whole military might of the South African army afraid of one fellow? That's ludicrous. And I think, you know, you telling me about it is even worse. I said, you know, you sound like the special branch. Of course, the interview entered.
When in in 84, during the phony trilateral Congress, or what do they call that, Parliament, with that excluded Africans, there was an upsurge in the struggle at that time. What was Chris's role in that?
I can't tell you a sort of, you know, place, time, event. But I think Chris was moved from Lesotho. By 82, I think he was gone. He was busy working his butt out. Now, a lot of I couldn't work in the underground when I came into exile because of government, and I was working for government, and I didn't want to upset the apple cart, and Chris and them wouldn't let me. I did propaganda, and we met on those bases. He would jog in the morning and pass my house and say, well, how's it going? How about these issues? And that sort of thing. It was, you know. But I didn't go to any formal meetings with Chris, so I can't. But Tenji and them worked with. Tenji, Socks and all these people worked with Chris. I didn't work to that. But I saw him daily, as a matter of fact.